In 2009, I decided to take a walk every single day, no matter what the weather or my health, and that led me to my first walking project. And I went to a different spot every single day. In 2011, I decided to go for a walk in every town in Massachusetts and to find open space in every community. And there are some towns that have no designated open space, no parks, no wildlife sanctuaries, no nothing. And so at those times, I would find myself in cemeteries, because a lot of cemeteries were actually designed for walking, for the living. And eventually the idea morphed into me trying to find my own epitaph, or clues to what it should be. I may end up, if I die at 72 or 73, just putting a timely demise, because it was about time I should have gone.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But so that's how that all gets started. That's why I ended up in cemeteries. They were designed in the Romantic era to be a place where the lower classes, more or less, that couldn't afford to get into museums and see statuary, could wander about and see the outdoor statuary that was prevalent at that time in the cemeteries. So they also were kind of designing cemeteries to roll with the hills and to be alongside streams and such. No longer the flat burial grounds that were the 18th century and 17th century standards. So they were more picturesque from the beginning. A lot more trees, much more to see. We're kind of reverting now. We're putting ourselves back in straight lines again for efficiency of space, I suppose. But there was a time when they designed cemeteries to be walked. They were as much for the living as they were for the dead. So here's Frank, and it says right here, prisoner at Andersonville, Georgia, 13 months. So veteran of the Civil War, originally from Middleborough, and came out this way. Ended up here at this intersection at Assinippie Corner. So we're right here where he did most of his work for the local community. You can imagine Assinippie always being kind of a crossroads and being a very busy place. He was the blacksmith right there, taking care of the horses and their feet and such. So, an important guy in the community. It makes you wonder how many people really knew the depth of his story, that he ended up coming home at 90 pounds and walking through the door, and his parents having thought he was dead for 2 years at that point. He also was only born in 1846, so he was very young when he got into the army to be able to fight in the Civil War. At 18 years old, that would have been 1864. So he was young when he went off to fight, and being stuck down there in Florida, leaning up against a tree, thinking that he was just done for. He must have just figured at 18 his life was over. At one point, he escaped from one of his prisoner of war camps and was chased down by hounds and brought back again. So he was a fighter, and just an amazing tale. You really can't tell all that until you kind of go in and start to do the deep research to find out more about this guy's life. And it's all there for the taking. So sometimes just seeing the stone can just spark that moment of research where you can find these stories. So there's a lot of old names in these old cemeteries: Vinings, Jacobs, Curtis, names that go back. Floretta was born, just as South Scituate was separating from Scituate and becoming a separate community. It wouldn't be named Norwell until 1888, but her dad, Alexander Vining, had a leather goods business. He was also a hotel owner in Hull, and among other things, he was the guy that pushed through the development of Nantasket Avenue to run to the end of the point, because his hotel was at the end of the point, and so he thought it would be good to have a road that actually went to his hotel. Was a selectman there, etc., and was married to Fanny. They had 2 kids, Cora and Floretta. Cora died young, and so when Alexander passed away in 1886, he left everything: his hotel money, his leather goods money, all that stuff, to Floretta. And she had just piles of cash and really kind of nothing to do. So she went to Europe for a while as they built her a 3-story house on Stony Beach in Hull, which is kind of right near the Life-Saving Museum today. And so she decided that she needed something to do, so she bought a syndicate of local newspapers so she could put out her editorial every week and just kind of spout her opinions and just crazy things. And so all the reading I've done about her, all the editorials of hers that I've read have been just, tremendous. Just this glimpse into the inner workings of this woman's mind back in the Victorian age, the late Victorian days. And yet here she is, literally just says Floretta at the bottom of the tombstone. She's got a single marker here as well. Nothing really kind of talking about the fact that so much of the good work that was done on the South Shore was done because she just got out there and just spoke her mind. And she used to call herself the mayor of Hull, but she really reached out and did things across the South Shore for all the newspapers she published, the Cohasset Sentinel, the Scituate Light, the Marshfield Outlook, the Hingham Bucket, all kinds of things. And yet you would never guess that by just looking at her tombstone here. So I was actually looking for Floretta, figuring she'd have something really important to say in her tombstone because she said so much in life, but I guess she just ran out. So by 1922, when she passed away, there was nothing there. Funny thing is that I look at that date, 1922, and I know she's gone at that time. She never married, and so she spent most of her life railing against how awful kids were, and just all these different things about why girls shouldn't chew gum, when they shouldn't swing their arms the way they do when they walk, they shouldn't scream like wild banshees when they're getting on the train to go to the next town. Just there were editorials about this stuff, and she was always threatening to put people's names in the paper about this, saying if I see you scream again, I'm going to put your name in the paper next week. So it was just funny to see that there's nothing there. Oddly enough, she left all of her money and her estate to her handyman, and so we're left to wonder what was the relationship with him in the end. But so there's Floretta. She was the queen of the South Shore for a while, and you'd never know it by looking at her tombstone.